Shana Tova, everybody. It has been a while and I have missed you over the weekend and over the last 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief brought to you by Lay of the Land, where we normally take a look at your top stories every Monday to Thursday. But of course, this week, because of the Chagim, it's just today and tomorrow. So let's get into it. Now, last week when we last spoke, we were talking about the various speeches at the United Nations General Assembly. And probably the two most important speeches to Israelis were that of Prime Minister Lapid and then Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. So let's take a look at some of the highlights of both speeches. Prime Minister Lapid addressed the plenary on Thursday evening, and as expected, he cautioned the world against a nuclear Iran. He also spoke to the United Nations, warning them of the effect of allowing anti-Semitism in their ranks, in their institution, and also of the dangers of online fake news anti-Semitism. He also lauded the Abraham Accords and very interestingly used the words, that Israel is ready to make peace with any country that wants to make peace with us. And he said, should Saudi Arabia and Indonesia, very, very interesting examples of countries, want to extend the hand of peace and friendship to Israel, it of course will be reciprocated. He also then said Israel is looking towards a two-state solution. Now, of course, this caused quite a little bit of controversy here in Israel before he made his speech. Some people saying that we don't have a partner with the Palestinians, something I'm going to get to in a minute, and others saying that this can never happen. But one thing we have to keep in mind when we talk about UN speeches is exactly who the audience is. The audience is not you and me. The audience is very much who is present in the room. Now, countries like Canada, the United States, the Saudi Arabians, as well as the United Arab Emirates have lauded Prime Minister Lapid's speech, which also became deeply personal. He spoke about Israelis and particularly Israeli children having to endure rocket attacks coming from terror entities in the Gaza Strip, like last year's 11-day war operation, Guardians of the Wall. But he spoke about how being the father of a special needs child, his daughter is non-verbal autistic, how he had to pick her up and run to the shelter last year and try to explain to her why there were people trying to kill her. Now, on the whole, Lapid's speech has been lauded here in Israel as extremely strong when it had to be strong, very conciliatory when it had to be conciliatory, and deeply, deeply personal. But the next day we had Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, and his speech, if we can call it that, 48 minutes long, to date the longest speech at the United Nations, ignoring the red lights to end it there, was, one could call it, the complete opposite of what Lapid was trying to say. In Abbas's 48-minute diatribe, he rejected Israel's legitimacy as a state, going all the way back to the Balfour Declaration and accusing the plenary of not paying attention to the Balfour Declaration, which would see the return of the Jewish people to their ancient homeland, but would also pave the way for a country for Arabs alongside Jews. And of course, at the time, Palestinians, as we understand Palestinians today, only came about in 1964. Abbas went on to accuse Israel of being an apartheid state, of being a colonial state. He held up pictures of children who had been killed in Gaza as a result of the ongoing war between Israel and terror entities in the Gaza Strip last year for 11 days, calling it one of 50 massacres. He also lauded Palestinian prisoners, calling them living martyrs, and obstinately saying saying that he would pay for their salaries, which is part of the very, very controversial pay for slay scheme. Nowhere in Abbas's speech was it remotely conciliatory, and it has roundly been seen by many pundits, not just here in Israel, as whiny, as playing victim mentality, and actually not saying anything remotely of sense at all. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, the next day called it a bizarre, lie-filled rant. Earlier today, IDF forces in Jenin clashed with Palestinian gunmen. A firefight broke out as the IDF forces arrived to arrest two suspects who are wanted for shooting at Israelis, one of them carrying out a terror attack earlier this year. Now, as IDF forces surrounded the house of the terrorists detonated an explosive device and opened fire towards IDF counter-terror forces, who then fired back, killing the two suspects. The IDF have said they will continue to conduct counter-terror operations in the West Bank. Now, many of us have been looking at the events in Iran in absolute horror following the arrest and subsequent torture and death of Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old woman from Kurdistan who was visiting relatives in Iran. She was not wearing a hijab, a head covering at the time, and was arrested by the Modesty police. It is reported that she was tortured and eventually was put into a coma. She died several days later. This has resulted in widespread protests, not only in Iran, where 76 people have been killed as a result of trying to crush these ongoing protests, as is the right of the people of Iran to protest, to express their indignation, their horror at what happened to Mahsa Amini. Many of the 76 victims have been women protesting for their freedoms, for their right to make individual choices. Now, Israeli women have responded by standing in solidarity with our Iranian sisters, and Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs have launched an online campaign, Israel's Women Stand with the Women of Iran. If you happen to be on social media, please check out Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs site. If you are on social media, you can also check out my Twitter. I've shared it there. Please share and help us give a voice to the women of Iran. And last, we're going to try and end off today's broadcast with some positive news. Israel and the United States have signed a major agreement in technological cooperation as part of the Jerusalem Declaration, signed by Prime Minister Lapid and President Biden earlier this year. This agreement looks to take relations between the two countries, which are already strong, to absolute new heights. Now, present for the signing of the declaration and for the discussions that will follow are representatives from a whole lot of different ministries across Israel, from energy to the environment to tourism. It's really, really going to do great things. And these are your top stories making headlines today, but don't forget to check in with me tomorrow as I bring you those top stories. But in the meantime, please check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook community at Lotl site. Like us, follow us. You guys know what to do. On YouTube at The Israel Brief, please click on that red subscribe button, and on Twitter at layoftheland5. I'm Rolene Marks with The Israel Brief, and I'll see you again tomorrow. In the meantime, Shana Tova and take care.